This has taken all fucking day, Oh my god. Here we are. An okay little menu. Hold. Alright, we're in the game. Ignore the frames right now. Boom. 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 Back to the main menu. Boom. 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 Okay. Haven't touched that. But this. Boom. The keybinds. I can change the setting. I can change any of these to be whatever. Boop, 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 boop. And fuck it. I mean, I could add a thing that makes it so you can't duplicate them, but maybe that's a fun thing to do. Fuck it. I don't know. And maybe it's helpful for some people or whatever. You got one arm. Maybe you don't want to and you got one arm and two fingers. Well, maybe you want to use one of your fucking bones to go forward and left because you only have one finger and you can't press forward and left at the same time. So I'm not worried about two things being bound to the same thing right now. Settings right now is I. Oh, that's actually one thing. Yeah, it's fine. So you can clear these to be fully empty, but you can't clear settings. You can just reset it to its default key because if you reset it, then there's no way to get back to it. like at all. So I had to put that in there because I got fucked over. I had to go back to my character and forcefully open this from the start because whenever you do this, it saves the settings. So yeah. All right. So and maybe a confirmation screen is helpful, but fuck it. So yeah. So like right now, I can't do nothing. I can't jump. I can't move around. None of that. I mean, I can look around because they're not binding the mouse, but I only have the settings to go back to, and I can reset it. I can change it to be J. Now I press J to leave it. T doesn't do anything anymore. Back to J. And really, it's going to be escape, realistically. But right now, if I put it on escape, then whenever you press escape in Unreal's editor, it'll kill the game. So I just put it on T for now because it's easy. But I could do whatever. Some random ass keys for these. Yeah, I have no idea what my binds are right now. So that's right. That's back. Right, back, left. What the fuck's forward? H? These binds are cursed. Yeah. Okay. So you can go back. Reset them all. Easy peasy. T again. Now back to normal. Sick. One issue I had this ready, but the problem was that everything was out of order, and that's because how the binds are structured, or like how your input actions, your IAs in Unreal are, is not how they actually appear in the array of bindings where they're actually stored. They're not in order. And so if you just spawn in and create separate little child widgets and spawn them into your main settings widget, what'll happen is they might, unless you're really lucky, they'll just spawn out of order. It's the same order every time, but maybe some other computers store them differently in different orders than me. I don't know. I tried moving settings around and whatever. Nope, it always spawns the same way. It was like forward space, left, right, back settings, or settings back, something like that. Or it was like back, left settings, forward space, right. It was trash. And so you want them to be in order so that I can put little spacers in or just leave them like this or whatever, something like that. The point is I don't want them to be shit. Well, that means that I have to hard code them. So instead of in my game menu, what is it even called? Keybinds, initialize. In my initializer, I basically was looping through all my keybinds and spawning in one of these guys, and then the widget, and it was the keybind slot, and then I was adding each one as a child to my scroll box. But the problem is, because they're not in order in the array that they're stored in the settings, they don't get added to the added as children in order. So the only way is to either know that in advance and manipulate the array. I tried moving the array around. I couldn't do it. So I said, fuck it. Okay. I went on YouTube and was looking around for other examples. I'd watched 4 or 5 videos, but I found a 6th one. And this European guy was showing you how to do it. And he didn't do that adding to child, adding as child stuff. He just did what I did now. Or well, rather, I'm doing what he did, but he just hard coded them in. Fuck it. You just add the separate children. Each one is what it is. That way you can customize exactly where it needs to go and tweak them or whatever. And you just hard code in the names for each one so that this is the right one. This is the left, the back, the forward, etc. So finally that works. I mean, that's basically it. As for the functionality, everybody on YouTube pretty much does it the exact same way. I had so much fucking debugging to go through because you have this basic functionality that comes with the character. In the future, I'm definitely going to start with a bland, like an empty character, because all this shit that I can't fuck around with is so annoying. But for example, in the basic character, by default, it registers these mappings. I'm not sure why, because they work even if you delete this logic. Like, if I just undo them, everything still works. So I'm not really sure why that is. And my movement is part of this mapping. And if you go to project settings and then type in enhanced, you'll find default mapping context. There aren't any. I have it disabled, and that's how it is by default. So I don't know how it could know what my stuff is by default, unless it's the regular input stuff. Move forward, move back. Let's find out. Oh wait. Oh yeah, let's delete that. Jump, toggle game in. Fuck it, I'll restart these later. Alright, let's find out. If I disable this now, it still works. See, so I don't understand. Okay, so we're back. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know how that works. So, basically there's this array of input actions. So you start with the controller. I tried using the enhanced input. I can't talk because I've been working on this for like fucking, I don't know, 10 hours. So it's enhanced input local player subsystem, this guy. And there are 2 versions. One that I'm not sure who it's pulling from. I guess we'll find out, because it doesn't take a player controller input an argument. I don't know how. So it's a class. I think the point is that it has two. Oh, you know what we're probably going to see is we're going to see 2 constructors in here, and one is a default and has nothing, and the other takes a player controller. I'm just going to search for the name. Can I just search for it in this file? I'm not actually sure how to do that. Find? Is it separate? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I didn't do anything. All right. Let's just do. Okay, it is just searching in here. I've never seen this search in here. Class view? Oh, I've never seen this before. Okay, interesting. So if I just look up view enhanced input local player subsystem, and I want to see, well, it's going to be a constructor, so we're going to look for that. That's it? Or what if I take the u out? None? Oh, this is the .h, and maybe the constructor is actually elsewhere. So what if we find the definition instead? Can I? Oh, is this a header only file? I guess it would be, right? This is world subsystem. Hold on. The class ends here. These are just extra properties. Maybe it's because the constructor's inherited. Oh, good. All right, whatever. I'd have to actually open up the full file and get it there. But basically, this is a class, and there are two different constructors. This one has a default argument where it doesn't take anything, and I guess it takes, like, you would think that the default constructor would search for the player controller of the local player that is calling this. And so it would do a bunch of like super calls to go up the chain and find it. But for some reason it doesn't, because I've done so much debugging, so much. It's all day, all fucking day. Granted, it took a while to get the thing working, like an hour or so. And then it was less, but then I had to figure out how to reorder it and other stuff. And then I had to figure out other things. Really in the beginning, it just wasn't working because the enhanced, turns out you have to fucking check this, enable user settings. Why? Don't know. Doesn't make sense to me why that would be ever disabled. Like why would you disable it? Why would this be used and why would it be enabled, but everything else is it's just so weird. It's like having a paint program. It's like if I open up paint.net and for some reason, like this third of the colors are just, well, that's actually fine. Nobody uses these colors, but like, I don't know, a third of the thing has no color. I just can't use it. This is all black. Or I can't use white, or I can't use black or something. You're like, what the fuck? Why? Why would that be disabled? That doesn't make sense to me. So, whatever. So, if anything, I'd rather it be enabled, and then people can make videos showing how you disable stuff, rather than having to remind you to enable stuff just to get the basic functionality. I would rather all the basic functionality be enabled, and you have to manually disable the extra stuff for optimization, but then they put a guide out there for it, instead of having to tell you to enable the shit. It's so stupid. But whatever, maybe people are just using this for fucking movies and you don't have to control anything. That's just weird. So, basically from the player controller, then we can get the subsystem. And only then will it say that I have keys. If I take this off and we're using the other one that doesn't connect to the player controller, it'll say no results. It'll say I have an empty array here for the mapped keys. I don't have any. Which makes no sense because we added this as context, which is our input mapping context, where we have all the binds. Looking around, the menu, jumping, moving. And so it's added. It doesn't make sense for me for it to not be there. I wasn't registering them with the subsystem till now, but regardless of whether I did, it didn't make a difference. It does, however, now. Oh, it didn't make a difference until I switched this over. But now that I switched this over, this is good. Basically, a bunch of tutorials shit on YouTube. So this isn't actually the logic, but this is just my debugging shit so that whenever I did it, it would tell me each key, which slot it's in, and what action it's bound to, and how many keys are bound to it. Because in the beginning I was getting 0 for that, but then eventually I was getting 2 for that, which didn't make any sense to me. How are there 2 bindings for each key? I didn't add any extra binding. There's no other default thing. I don't know how it's in there. And there's no like config file I can tell that I can just manually type them in and then leave them. I can't do that apparently. So, eventually I figured out that I'm actually just stuck with 2 keybinds for both. So by default, for some reason, the input mapping context adds them into... Here, I'll just go to it really quick. I'll just keep this kind of bare bones. Alright, so basically once we get the player subsystem, we have to get its settings. And without that checkbox, this was always invalid. And I was wondering why it was invalid. It was a fucking checkbox. And if you skip through any of the people's videos, you'll miss that because it's at the first, it's like 2.5 minutes in, right where you think nothing is important. because 2 seconds later they're just adding shit to viewport, a bunch of regular basic widget stuff, and I skipped it like a dumbass, so I have to be more careful next time. So we get the user settings, and then the user settings has a map. It has all of your input mapping, or your input actions that are included in your input mapping context, and each one of them has a name on the inside. And the name is deeper down here, that you add whenever you're enabling the functionality, which you have to manually click override and then enable this. You put a name so that the player can override it. You enable it so the player can override it, and then you give it a name. So we have a map. We have a bunch of names, and each one of them has one or more, or zero or more keys bound to it. So each of these is a name and a key. And really the key is actually a structure itself that has its own info. So picture a name, Ethan, or jump, and attached to it in this array, so it's like an array of names, and each one of them has an array of keys that is bound to it, but each key has its own information. So it's a 3D array, basically. So a cube. And so what happens is, we get all of those, we want to see the first array, what are my actions, and then for each action, we have to break it, we have to break this piece of the map so that we have to break this row so that we can get all the keys that it has, or all the key info, because each one is actually more than just a key. And then we have to, so we finally get, let's say we chose jump. So we broke this, and for each, so the first, we're going to go element by element, name by name. We're going to start with the first one, jump. Okay, so we have the jump name, and it has an array, it itself, this is each one of them, so we've chosen jump, and jump now has this whole row, but it's a row. A row is an array. So we have to break the row to get it into an array, and this is just a set. I didn't know what a set was until recently. I haven't learned that in C++ yet. I haven't learned any of the arrays where you're unable to index them, but I guess that's what a set is. Maybe that's unique to Unreal though, so I'm not sure. I know that type of structure exists, or that type of array exists, or list, container, sorry, that type of container exists, but I don't know what they're actually called or what they are. So, where you don't index them, you just loop through them, I guess? I'm not really sure. So I guess you would use a for each loop, because you don't actually need to know the indexes. So, in this one row, now we're looking even further. Okay, in this one row, for each element it has, now, finally, we get the key, let's see. Hold on. So for each name, now we're looking at the row. And now for the row, we're looking at each thing it has. Each key mapping is what it's called. Not a key mapping, because each key mapping has its own shit. So really it's not an array, but each one is like a package. So really it's a 2D array. The names, the mappings, and when you run a loop on this, from the first index to the last, you look at each mapping, and each one has its own things. But the point is, each one of these, this is not simply a name in a key and a name in a key. It's a name in who the hell knows how many keys? Who knows how many are in this? For me, I'm stuck with fucking 2. So, for example, if I print here and I get the length, this will tell you how many of these cursed fucking keys I have for each of these names. Let's find out. Wait a minute, don't say anything. Right now it says 1. I don't know how it says 1. Oh wait, no, hold on. Wait. I don't know why that says 1. I have no idea. So Yeah, somehow I don't think I changed anything. The only thing I did was I deleted my debug shit in the beginning, but it doesn't do anything. It was just debug. Okay, that doesn't make sense to me. So we have 6 actions, okay. But each of the actions had 2 separate keys in it. I mean, I think I've restarted the game since, so maybe, I don't know, that's weird. That is really weird. Each one of the names had 2 keys bound to it, and by default they were both the default key. So there were 2 separate bindings, W and W, bound to forward. Space and space, 2 separate key bindings, key mappings, bound to jump. And that's fucking annoying. Why? Because when I change one, and then you think, oh, I want to use space to attack, but then you press space, well, you still have a second instance of space that is bound. You'd have to change both to match whatever you're going to do. And I guess that's another way of doing it too, but it's just stupid. Because you may as well just get rid of the extras. And so if you change space to be attack, you only changed one of them. So if you press space, yes, you'll attack now, but you're also still going to jump, which is fucking annoying. So for each of the keys for the one name, check. Which key are we? Or which key mapping? Are we the first, the second, the third? Apparently it's limited. Or, oh, never mind, it says max. So we get up to 7, and then max, so I don't know if 8 is the limit or what. But there's also an unspecified. It was weird. So earlier when I had 2, I would print this, and I printed the slot for every single key. And it would show that for jump, we had 1 key mapping in the first slot, but another in the unspecified slot, and that was for all of them. The first, when I would delete the registering logic, it would show that I only had 1 for each, and it was in the unspecified slot. But then, when I added this, it was in the first slot. And I tried using... How did I fix this shit earlier? Oh, so I tried using the unspecified slot earlier, but for some reason, I think the information gets messed up, or it's not accessible or something if it's in that slot. I can't really explain why. I don't understand. Because in here we do some stuff, but basically we get the key gets passed into here to initialize this thing. We save the settings, we save that key mapping, including its slot, including its name, including the key, all of that shit. And when it happened to be the unspecified slot, and I switched all my logic to work on the unspecified slot, so I would have this array, or this mapping of names in the keys, and they're all in the unspecified slot. Well, if I change them all, then it's cool. If I change space or jump from being space in the unspecified slot to being J in the unspecified slot, it should still work, right? No. For some reason, the names were whacking out. When I would open up my settings, the names would be blank here. Even though when I did debug printing, the name was still indeed jump. But the action name would be lost somehow, even though it's contained inside the key mapping. It's this mapping name. It was lost when it's in the unspecified slot. I don't know why or how. So basically we loop through each of these, and we only want to pass this slot the info for the first slot. Or for each keybind, the info for the first slot. That way, each one of them is adjusting the same slot, and we know which one it is. I could have said any of these, but it just so happens that when I register the mapping context, it adds them to the first slot, as you would expect. The key binds it to the first. We have no bindings. Now we have the first binding, but there's technically some built-in hidden one. Unspecified. It's weird. So I want to change the first ones only. And then, in order to have these guys in order, forward, back, left, right, and not random, I can't just stop there and create a widget for each one of these. I have to do another loop, another nested loop, where for jumps first slot, look at this guy and see, is this guy jump? If it is, pass him the info and initialize him. Nope, it's not this one, it's not this one, it's not this one. Oh, here's jump, pass him the info. So we loop through each of those keybinds, and finally pass it the info. We pass it the key, and we do that comparison by just checking the name. We already have the name. The name is matching the mapping context, and the name is in the slot itself, the keybind slot that we hard code in there. And so once it's true and it found it, we initialize that one, and then we go to the next one. And then we stop because we don't need to check the next widgets for space or for jump. We already found jump. So now go to the next one. Now we're going to forward. And so we get the first key bound to forward. And then we check which one of these guys is forward. And then we initialize that guy. And then boom, we're good. And then the initialization basically just saves the settings. That way we can update the settings. And you need to update the settings in order to actually lock in those new keybinds via add player or player map key. And then we have to refresh this selector thing, which is what allows us to click in there to detect and set keys. These guys, these are all selectors. And so we have to update those to use this updated key. And the selector's text, or actually, it automatically updates to use the name of the key, which is cool. It just updates. All the selector is a selector. That's it. There's no, can't specify the text. I can specify what when it's empty, but that's it. So it automatically matches whatever the mapping name is. And then if we are on the slot that is for the settings key, rename the button that lets us clear it to reset. And there's functionality elsewhere that prevents us from clearing it, because if you clear it, then you can never go back to the settings and fix your settings. So that would not be good. You'd have to like delete your config file, I guess. And so the logic that actually does that is whenever we click this button, basically it checks to see, is this slot settings? If it is, then get the default key, which is from what the key mapping that was passed here, because the key mapping holds the current key and the default key. And the default key is stored here, but the current key is stored somewhere else at runtime, or I guess in your config file. And so if we're on another key and we clear it, we're not, this row is not settings, we're not on the settings action key binding. And so we're going to set the key to be nothing, blank, because we are not settings in this case. And so we then map that player key. You just use this, pass in a player key, and then it updates. And then we apply the settings and save it so that you can close the game, open it later, and the settings are still applied and they're immediate. And then we refresh that selector again to use the current key, because otherwise you would use it and it wouldn't update to use that new name. It would still say space or whatever, even though it visually updated and it became clear again or whatever, it stopped detecting. It would go back to whatever the key used to be. So we have to refresh this guy manually because it's not going to refresh on its own. I could update the key mapping, but the selector isn't going to update until you actually go in and say, hey, selector, use this key now, please. And then it will, from the key, put the name of the key, which will be W or space or fucking left mouse or whatever. And so that's basically the logic behind it. Wrong thing. And then for actually choosing the key, we check to see, hey, is it a different key than it was? If not, we don't give a shit. But if it is, okay, save that key for now, and then go and find the key mapping. In this case, we are spacebar, and that was passed here as the key mapping when this widget was constructed, which is really whenever the game gets started right here, or it's the first time the widget's opened, really. It's when this game menu gets created. It's the first time you ever open it up. So this never changes. This is always going to be jump. And so we find jump in the mapping, and we update this mapping in the first slot to be the key, whatever the hell we just chose, spacebar. And then we apply the settings and save them. It's basically same shit as here. It does all this, except when we're clearing, we're setting it to be nothing. And I added a check in here because if we are well, I already said it, but if we are clearing the settings button, I don't want this to go to nothing, because then we can't use it anymore and you'd have to delete your file or something. So, but that's that. That basically it works. I'm going to add other mapping contexts in here because right now I'm just using placeholders for some keys. I'm using a placeholder interaction button and a dropping page button. And I need to add those in there. And then I need to add, I'm not sure what others actually. I think those are probably, turning pages. So I need 4 others. And so I'll go in here and then I'll just add to the scroll box 4 more children. And then I shouldn't need to update the logic in here, I don't think. I'll talk about this in a second. It still just loops through everything is fine. First slot, good. And it should be hopefully smooth sailing when I add those, because it doesn't give a shit how many elements are in this array. It's just going to be 2 more or 4 more names added to the list. Page left, page right, drop page, pick up page, or interact, drop page. That's it. So, before I do this, now apparently I'm not experiencing the issue, because when I was printing how many keys there are bound to each name, I was only seeing 1 a second ago. But let me check what this was really quick, because I somehow changed a bunch of files. And what in the hell is all this? Oh, this is when oh, it was just now. Excuse me. Up. Excuse me. It's in order. Open to the main screen. I'm not sure actually. I see these changes. I don't know if I should keep them or not. I don't know if I've done anything. I don't think so, really. Fuck. Fuck, what did I do? God damn it. Oh, I was messing around on the first part, I know that. And then here I don't actually know. I might just discard them. I think I will. Yeah, I will. When was it? Can I tell? 30 minutes ago. Fuck! How long have I been recording? Oh, it's the start of the recording. Okay, cool. I can delete it. Thank God. All right. So when I was getting 2 keys bound to each name, each action, jump, forward, backward, left, right, etc., I was getting 2 every time. And I said, okay, fuck it. How do I get rid of that extra one? That way when I bind spacebar to be, or when I bind the settings menu to be escape, if you press T, it doesn't pull up the settings menu. Because if it still does, then you can't use T for something else. Because if you do, it'll do that something else now. But it's not fully freed up to do that other thing. It's still opening the settings menu. W is still stuck going forwards, even though it's now reload. Now if you use W as interact, W interacts, but it still goes forward because it still had that extra slot that you can't unbind. Unless I go and I do a loop for each one of them, and each one of these slots holds all instances, all of the keys bound to the action. That's just so sloppy. It's like holding... It's like having multiple springs in a firearms magazine, but they can't take rounds. Like, it's just useless. Why do you have extra shit in there? It just doesn't make sense. So, what do? I just clear them out. I clear out the unspecified slots, or any slot that's not first. I know that this logic to add and register the input context, the mapping context that adds my moving around, jumping, and looking around and stuff. These 2, and then the 4 keys here, my 6 binds. I know that logic adds them into the first slot because it just does. When you register them, it puts them in the first slot. But I still have those other copies that I need to disable. So I basically have the same logic. I validate the input user settings to make sure it exists, and for each of the names in this mapping, then each of these funky arrays, I break the row to see all of the keys it has. Okay, and so we break this row to see what do we have here, here. So, right? Isn't that how it is? So yeah, we have 4 each of these. So for this guy, for this row, for this row, for this row, we break this row, and we look, key. If the key is not in the first, then update our mapping, which is by mapping map player key. We do the same slot. So let's say we find this and it's unspecified. We say, okay, buddy, this key or this action in the map, this row, which element, which slot, the first slot, or the not first slot. So in this case, if we found unspecified or second slot, we would say, okay, in the second slot, we are binding to be none. And then go to the next one. Are there any more for this row? No, there aren't, because there's just first. So it's going to say false because it is the first row. So that one is safe. But then we have the unspecified one. So it's going to say true. It is not in the first slot. It's the unspecified slot. Clear that key. Cool. Go down to the next one. Now we're at jump. Okay. First is safe, unspecified, clear, etc. Go down. So technically there are 2 bindings for each. Picture a game with a settings menu that gives you 2 optional bindings, like Call of Duty or Tarkov or something, where you get 2 bindings, and just picture one as grayed out. That's how it is now. So instead of it being stuck as the default, and whenever you change this one to be a different key, you're still stuck, and you can never undo it. You can never use that. You can never use R for anything but reload because it's still stuck on reload. Well, now it's just disabled. So when you change R from being reload or G from dropping a page to something else, to jumping, then it actually changes. And then you can put it somewhere else. And then use G for something else, and you're good to go. You're not stuck with it. So basically, I use this function to clear out all the non-first slots. And then we apply the settings and save them. That way, if we go here and we change these guys to be whatever, and then I close this and we come back in, it's still Y. And we can see that these keybinds are all still like that. And then I also have a reset button. And the reset button works pretty easily. Like it does it for each one of these. So I have a reset function in the main widget too. And what it does is it says, hey, for each child. Oh, wait, actually. Oh, yeah. So for each child, because we don't know what kind of widget it is, we just know that they're widgets. Cast it to turn it into the keybind to get that kind of access, because we know that in this case, we know that it's I don't even know what you call that. I guess it is casting. This kind of casting is interesting. I haven't seen this before in C++. Because normally we refer to things in their most derived class. Like I'm never gonna, if I create a class called monster and then I create one that derives from monster and it's called orc, I'm never gonna like pass in orc as an argument for monster. I mean, so far I would static cast it to be monster, but static cast it via reference so that we're still accessing it like that. I've never done it in reverse. I've never had it received as monster and then check to see if it's an orc. I've just never had a problem like that before because I'm not that advanced just yet. But in this case, we are doing that. We're saying, hey, we can only get the children in as widget actors, so we need to cast them down to see if it is this derived class. And because it is, then we call this function on it to reset that one, and then do it for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. That resets all of them. Well, what is the resetting? Well, all we do is we say, okay, well, each slot knows what action it is. It happens right when we create it from the get-go. It's passed it from the get-go, the key mapping, and it never changes, ever. So, jump knows that he's jump. So what do? We map jump, and we just give it the default key, which is specified in our default settings. So jump is spacebar by default, as it should be. And so if I click reset, it will loop through all the children, all of the child widgets, bum, 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 bum. And what will it do? For each one, it will call this, and it will say, okay, jump. Your key is spacebar. Refresh the visual to now say jump. Cool. And that will update the text to now say spacebar. And then apply and save. And then the next one, do this, apply and save. Next one, do this, apply and save. Next one, do this, apply and save. And sure, technically, oops, I didn't mean to close that. Technically, I don't actually need to apply and save until later. Like if I have that saved here somewhere, I could apply and save here at the end of this. But fuck it. Do each one just in case. So that's that. So next on the agenda is delete. I can do all that shit from scratch now, so we're good. I'm proficient in all that. That took fucking forever. It was definitely 10 hours today for sure. Because I got out of bed at basically 9. I cooked. But I have not fucked around for more than an hour today at all. So it's just been nonstop UI. So next up is to add page left and page right, and then dropping pages, and then interacting with things. Because you're going to interact to open up chests and other stuff. It's not just pick up page, it's interact. And then maybe audio, and then controller support. Because it'll be tough when I eventually make some of my other games. It'll be tough controller support because they'll be VR. I don't think it'll be possible really. Well, I guess they are a controller by default. I mean, I guess you can already map those, right? They won't be mouse and keyboard at all. But just because, yeah. But in this case, I want to maximize how many people can play the game. So I don't think Mage Arena has controller support, but I want to find out. Actually, I think it said it was one of the most played on Steam Deck. Or maybe, no, that was Expedition, I think. No, that was Schedule 1. So I'll have to figure out how to do that. I'll just update the binds. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, how many buttons are on a controller? I should be able to just swap them over and then make looking up and down and whatnot work as well. I don't have to. Only thing is it might mess around with the key bindings will be the hardest part. Not just adding the stuff, but making them mappable to separate stuff. That could be interesting, but we'll find out. It's a problem for later. But I'm gonna add these next binds or these next bindings, and then I'll do audio. Then I'll do controller support. I think that makes sense. Yeah, fuck it. Oh, alright, bye bye. Damn.